Hello and welcome everyone. The 1st of February 2024 brings us some brand new news into World of Warships. Now not only does the bounty event start in-game today, of which I will be taking part, this is my CC press account, wows_cc_2138. If you're looking to earn some rewards in-game, feel free to have a shot at me on the high seas. So there was some important announcements last night. Most notably was the announcement of the HMS Rodney. Now there are some additional announcements of ship releases: the French cruiser Montcalm at tier 6 and the British cruiser Orion in its 44 configuration, also at tier 6, which we'll cover in later videos. But most notably is the announcement of Royal Navy British battleship Rodney at tier 7. This is quite significant and long awaited. HMS Rodney was one of 2 Nelson-class battleships built for the Royal Navy during the mid-1920s and entered service in 1928, going on to spend most of her peacetime career with the Atlantic and home fleets, and sometimes even serving as flagship when her sister ship Nelson was being refitted. Now, most famously, during the early stages of World War II, she searched for the German commerce raiders. She participated in the Norwegian campaigns and escorted convoys in the Atlantic Ocean. In 1939, following the sinking of the armed merchant cruiser Rawalpindi by the German battleships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau off Iceland, Rodney and the rest of the home fleet was sent to look for them, but heavy weather allowed the German battleships to evade their pursuers and return to ports in Germany. After Bismarck sank the battlecruiser Hood during the Battle of the Denmark Strait on the morning of the 24th of May 1941, Rodney was then ordered by the Admiralty to join in the pursuit of the German battleship. After successfully tracking the Bismarck, she was spotted on the morning of the 27th of May, 1 minute after King George V, and was the first to open fire at a range of over 23,000 yards. The initial salvos from both ships were off target, but Rodney straddled her opponent with her 3rd salvo and hit her twice with her 4th, knocking out the forward superfiring turret, disabling the lower turret, and severely damaging the bridge of the Bismarck. In return, Bismarck scored no hits, although she managed to damage Rodney with shell splinters before her forward guns were knocked out. Around this time, the combined fire from Rodney, King George V, and heavy cruisers Norfolk and Dorsetshire, they knocked out all of the Bismarck's main guns. Rodney would then close to point-blank range and continuing to engage, firing full broadsides into Bismarck from a virtual flat trajectory, and added 3 more torpedoes at a range of 3,000 yards, one of which malfunctioned, but another may have struck Bismarck. According to the naval historian Ludovic Kennedy, who was present at the battle on the Tribal-class destroyer HMS Tartar, stated, and I quote, "If true, this is the only instance in history of one battleship torpedoing another." With Bismarck crippled and no longer able to fight back, First Officer Hans Uhls, the senior surviving officer, then issued the order to scuttle the Bismarck. All damage control measures to cease, watertight doors to be opened, and the personnel to prepare scuttling charges, and the crew to abandon ship. Bismarck began capsizing at about 10:35, and within 5 minutes had slipped beneath the waves, stern first. During this engagement, the 2 British battleships fired over 700 large caliber shells at Bismarck, and all told, King George V, Rodney, Dorsetshire and Norfolk collectively fired some 2,800 shells, scoring around 400 hits on the Bismarck. Now, going on in 1942 and 1943, Rodney operated primarily in the Mediterranean, in between refits, providing artillery cover support for the landings at Algiers and Oran in French Algeria, before later taking part in Operations Husky, Operation Baytown, and Operation Avalanche. While at sea with the French battleship Richelieu to conduct a night gunnery exercise on the 29th of December 1943, Rodney suffered weather damage during a very severe storm that caused extensive flooding, requiring repairs until early 1944. These were completed on the 28th of March, and Rodney steamed back to Scapa, where she arrived on the 1st of April, and would go on to spend the next few months conducting gunnery training, mostly shore bombardment, but also anti-aircraft shoots, and practice defending herself against attacks by E-boats. Now, although she was initially placed in reserve for the Normandy landings, better known as Operation Overlord, Rodney did engage coastal defence guns near Le Havre and was ordered forward to support operations off Sword Beach. Rodney engaged targets north of Caen, possibly belonging to the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend, which was attacking the British and Canadian troops there. That night, the ship moved to the waters of Juno Beach to avoid attacks by German light forces. Returning to Sword on the 8th of June, she again bombarded German troops and vehicles near Caen. The following morning, Rodney began engaging targets in Caen proper, beginning the gradual devastation of the city. After the end of Operation Charnwood, which was the frontal assault on Caen proper on the 8th to 9th of July, the ship was withdrawn as Allied forces drove deeper into France. She had expanded a total of over 500 16-inch shells and 450 6-inch shells during her stay off the Normandy coast. HMS Rodney would also go on to escort one convoy through the Arctic to the Soviet Union in late 1944. But there's just a little taste of some of HMS Rodney's escapades throughout World War II. Now, the Rodney is described in-game as a battleship with a unique layout in which all three main caliber turrets are concentrated in the bow, and of course is the sister ship of the battleship Nelson, seen here on screen. Joining her sister ship Nelson, Rodney is similarly armed with 9 406mm guns. However, the turrets will traverse slowly and the main battery guns have poor accuracy at long range. Supplementing her main battery, Rodney will be equipped with turning torpedoes, as found on the British battlecruiser line. These will have a short reload, very wide launching angles, and deal very high damage for the ship tier, but she can only launch one torpedo per side. These torpedoes have a max damage of just over 29,000. For her consumables, Rodney will be equipped with fast reloading repair party, while her low base speed may be improved by her engine boost, which is 8%. Now, described in-game, Rodney will excel at close quarters combat, preferring to engage her enemies at short range, and similar to the Soviet battleships, her dispersion formula will afford improved accuracy at close range, but will lose performance sharply as the range increases. Thanks to her engine boost, Rodney will be able to get to the action fast, while her fast reloading repair party should allow her to tank significant amounts of enemy firing. It's also worth noting that Rodney will be able to recover an increased amount of both regular and citadel damage, and captains may end up needing this, as her citadel is quite vulnerable to enemy battleship fire. Now, we don't have a model yet of the Rodney. It's still in development. So for testing purposes, they are going to be using another ship called the Duke of Bronte with settings identical to Rodney. Now, once I get this ship in port, I will update with another video going into armor model and the ship's complete stats, but we will have to wait a little bit for this. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's a very nice ship to look forward to, the HMS Rodney. I look forward to meeting you on the high seas over the next couple of days during this bounty event. I wish you all the best of luck. If you'd like to see some live gameplay, feel free to come over here and visit me on Twitch. I look forward to seeing you all.
Battle ends in 5 minutes. Enemy cruiser sighted. Enemy battleship destroyed.